Good afternoon and welcome to All for United. This is the Pride of All Europe podcast, brought to you by the Mystery Shirt Club. Go on their Twitter, get yourself an absolute bargain mystery box and get yourself a surprise, really. I believe it's mystery underscore shirt underscore to Twitter, on the old Twitter there. With me today is Charlie and with me today is Stu. How are we, boys?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
Good, mate. Good.
Looking forward to it. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there today.
Absolutely. We're just waiting on Chuki, so if he just join us, well, I'll pop him on the stream as soon as he does join us, if he does join. Yesterday was absolute madness, boys. Absolute madness. Results that I never really expected to see. But what a day of football yesterday. I want to start off with if I may, with the Hungary game, because I thought that was quite a decent result for Hungary. And I thought they would play very well against Portugal, despite the 3-0 scoreline. So, Charlie, I'll come to you. What do you make of the France-Hungary game first to start us off with?
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you, Ben. It was Hungary have really impressed me, actually. They got the group of death. The Euros haven't given much of a chance, have they? UEFA really are going through. But against Portugal, I thought the 3-0 looked a bit unfair on them in the end. They played some good stuff throughout Hungary against Portugal. And then yesterday, obviously, I think their main man, I think he's called Shalai or something, the number 9, he had to go off, their captain, with an injury. So it looked bad for them. But then they got the lead just before half-time. And obviously, France came back and got an equaliser. But they deserve something out of the game, really. You know, they've got a real good support there in Budapest. I think there's 50,000 fans there yesterday. So it was a really good game. And, you know, they didn't just sit back either. You know, when they won the ball back, what they did, they went when they went forward, they attacked with numbers. And then when they lost the ball forward, they sort of formed little triangles and rectangles to press. And they really pressed France and locked them in at times. And it was a really, really good game. I was really impressed with them. I did look at they've got Germany the next game, and it is in Munich though. So, you know, I'm not so sure they'll pick up anything in Munich. If that last game was in Budapest again, you might fancy them to give Germany a good game. But after seeing, obviously we're going to Germany in a bit, but after seeing Germany yesterday, obviously they turned up. But yeah, really impressed with Hungary. Unfortunately, because the last game's in Munich, I don't fancy them to go through. But I think out of all the teams, you know, out of the middle of the road teams, the Turkeys, the Switzerlands, who else is you got Austria, teams like this, I think Hungary have actually impressed more than those teams. So I think we've got to give Hungary a bit of credit. They've been given a very tough group and they've done better than Turkey. They've scored a goal, which Turkey haven't. So there you go. They've done better than Turkey already. And, you know, they're in a much harder group than Turkey are. So I think we've got to give them a lot of credit, Hungary.
Let's not go on about Turkey because, Stu, that was your dark horse. It's not gone so well so far.
Embarrassing. I know nothing about football. What the hell am I doing on this channel? I know nothing about football. Get me off.
Absolutely. Oh, you do, Stu. You do. Remember, you played the game of football, pal. That's why I got your opinion.
That's what I hear on the grapevine. Yeah.
On the Hungary game, though, pal, against France, what do you make of Paul Pogba's performance? Because he did come off. He was substituted off in the second half. What did you make of his performance yesterday?
I just want to pick up on Hungary first, and I'd like to pick up on the myth of football and how 90% of fans always state, well, you know, you've got to have 2 or 3 superstars. Football's never about that. Football's about a team of collective players. And I've always said this, Benny, as you well know, throughout the Premier League season. If you get a group of hungry players who stick to a game plan, who can adapt during the game, who can see what's happening and make subtle changes during the game, you become exceptionally hard to beat. And again, within football, if you can take that one chance or that 1 in 2 chances, you don't have a chance of a result. And ultimately, that's what happened yesterday with Hungary. So Charlie's absolutely right. You're talking a well-organised team of players. None of them are household names, but it's absolutely irrelevant. It's what happens over those 90 to 95 minutes of a game of football that really determine, you know, where you end up. And so Hungary deserve a lot of credit. I think Charlie's right. I think for the mediocre teams, and I don't think that's being unfair by saying that, but with the mediocre teams, I think Hungary have been, and North Macedonia for me, by the way, have been the standout performances. With regards to Pogba, he is the enigma, isn't he? There are occasions where he looks absolutely unstoppable. Up there with the best players in the world in his particular position. And there are occasions where he just looks totally disinterested. I thought it was a bit of a 50-50 non-existent performance from him yesterday. I don't know, other people view it differently. But when you're in the European Championships, you're a player of that caliber, you're a player of that esteem, then you've got to be grabbing games by the balls. And I just don't see that enough from Pogba, consistently. And that's always been his biggest problem. I think consistency will actually define his career when it's all said and done and his boots are hung up. And yeah, you can look at a World Cup winners medal, etc., Serie A titles, etc. But really, really be able to say that he got the very, very, very best out of himself over the life of his career. And the answer to that, unfortunately, would be no. Now, there's been a bit of speculation popping up, hasn't there, the last couple of days about certain clubs wanting him again, straight swaps, i.e. And I don't know whether Raiola is doing his usual stuff in the background, or maybe he was just disinterested yesterday, or maybe he got an arrogant streak in him that he has occasionally that says, the Hungarians aren't there to lace my boots. I don't know. But ultimately, I think Charlie's absolutely spot on. Hungary deserve all the credit in the world. The problem is that that group's pretty much done now, because I can't see, actually, even on the back of yesterday's German performance, I can't see Hungary going and getting a result. So I think that's a done group, really.
Despite the draw, are we still saying that France are the favourites then, boys?
Well, that group has turned itself right on its head, hasn't it? Yeah. Because yesterday Portugal looked woeful, Germany looked world beaters, and France looked. Look, I've got a feeling the French went in there with too much complacency yesterday. It was a tick box exercise for them. It was a done deal. We're going to walk away with 3 points. We're going to qualify, and we're going to win the group, and we're happy. And that was a bit of a slap in the face for old Deschamps there. I think he'll be quite angry, if I'm being honest. I think some of the players should be angry. With regards to Germany, I know you're going to want to touch on it, Benny, but with regards to Germany, what a privilege that was to see a turnaround of epic proportion. But as we've always said, the Germans turn up, don't they? They absolutely turn up. Do you know what the highlight, though, for that game was for me? Ronaldo ran 70 yards to pop his ball in the back of the net. 70 yards. Oh, unbelievable. The pace as well at his age was terrific. And at one stage, I don't know if you saw, he strayed offside, but he just managed to hold his run as the ball came across to Silva. Silva's touch, by the way, was absolutely sublime. It was a wonderful touch. And then obviously Ronaldo put it in. So that was one of the highlights for me.
Absolutely. Charlie, I'll come to you. Just to finish off on France, do you still expect to go be favourites to win this tournament, or do you think there is a little bit of a vulnerability there about them?
Yeah, I think France are still the favourites, but this group, as Stu said, has turned on its head. And France, if you look at their international games, they don't really blow teams away. They keep quite a lot of clean sheets. They don't concede that many goals, France. But I think a lot of it depends on. We can't say too much until we see the draw for the round of 16. I think because in terms of talking about England as well, if England were to beat the Czech Republic on Tuesday, they're obviously going to play the team who finished second in France's group. And at the moment, that actually looks like it could even be France, because if Germany beat Hungary, they're on 6 points, and France are on 4. So if France don't beat Portugal, Germany will top the group, I think, because Portugal's goal difference will be poor, won't it? Even if they beat Germany, they're still on 6 points, but their goal difference will be lower than Germany's most likely. So if England top their group, they could actually be playing France. So, we can't. I don't think you can say too much, but I think France. I don't think we can read too much into one game. Hungary. France are not going to come up against many teams. I don't think like that. I think France will play like they did against Germany, against a lot of the big teams on the counter attack. I think that suits them. In the midfield, they've got, Kante, Rabiot and Pogba. And if you actually look at how those three play, they're more of like a gritty midfield to stop the opposition. Pogba can play that more advanced role, but he doesn't really, Deschamps, especially yesterday, Pogba you didn't see him marauding into the box too much. So I think France, obviously still a big favourite, but I think you two will agree as well. There's not other than Italy, really, in my opinion, but again, they've not come up against anybody particularly frightening yet. There's not really one team that you look at so far and you've been absolutely amazed with, really. I think Italy have probably been the best. And there's been a lot of these so-called, bigger favourites. Belgium have been okay. They haven't blown anybody away, but they've been okay. England have been poor. Portugal have been quite poor as well. Germany seem to have, played well yesterday, but they've still conceded 2 goals. I still think the Germans, with that defence they've got, they haven't got any pace at the back. I think they'll get caught out. So at the moment, I wouldn't really fancy sticking my money on anybody, to be honest with you.
Good shout that, Charlie. Good shout that. I would have to move on to it, Stu. Like you said, the Germany game, the Germany-Portugal game, that was a really decent game, that. What did you make of it, anyway, Stu? I know you touched upon it a little bit earlier on, but where did it go wrong for Portugal yesterday? Was it a lack of concentration, maybe? Maybe they had their heads in the clouds a little bit?
Well, Germany had to win, didn't they, first and foremost? And if you look at what Scotland did at Wembley on Friday, they had to get a result, and they did. And they really, Scotland could have won the game. And I just think Germany were. There comes a time in any tournament where you have to be ruthless. You've got to take your chances. I thought Germany came out a completely different animal. Jogi Löw's been at the heart of German football now for 15 odd years, something like that, 16 years. You don't stay in an international job such as Germany, unless you know what you're doing. And he's had his back against the ropes the last couple of tournaments, but he always comes out fighting. And I think Germany, the players got out early. They threw the towels on the odd sunbeds, put a block up of, a wall up there, and said to Portugal, "It's up to you to come and get us." Portugal got the early goal, as we know. Ronaldo, I think he's moved on to 3 already. But then Germany just turned it around. And you've got one thing you've got with Germany, you've got the old crooner in there, Toni Kroos. He's an absolute timeless classic. He's a silver ghost, a silver shadow of a Rolls Royce. He's just timeless, that kid is. He always... very, very rarely we see Kroos have a bad game. And you had Gundogan, or Gundogan, should I say, on his game yesterday as well. I think those two were quite pivotal to the way that Germany played. Muller, again, he's another one that they brought back in. His work rate is phenomenal. What Muller will do, if he's not scoring goals, he'll absolutely become a menace and he'll pull centre-halves apart. And that's what happened with Diaz yesterday. And so... I actually do quite fancy Germany top the group now, to be honest. I don't know whether it's going to be France or whether it's going to be Portugal that go through. I'm a bit torn on this one because of France's performance yesterday and also Portugal's performance. A draw will probably see them both through, so it might be a bit of a damp squib. But I fully expect Germany to win that group. But Charlie's right, depending on where we come. And the Czech Republic is going to be a very difficult game for us on Tuesday. It could be quite interesting to see who we do face. So, I think this tournament's blown wide open now on the results from yesterday. So it's all good for the fan. All good for the fan.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said before, though, Germany, when they go into a tournament, seem to no matter how they qualify, how bad they'd be doing at friendlies, they seem to always have a switch that they switch on when it comes to tournament football. And yes, every now and then in tournament football, they do have a stinker. They do go out in the group stages. They're not like untouchable, but they've always seemed to have a switch or something, a mentality when it comes to tournament football that this is their time. And they'll always get to the latter stages there or thereabouts. Charlie, I'll come to you. Do you think that's the Germans' biggest strength then? Is that belief that they can go far in the tournament, that they've got a history of doing it year after year after year, with the exception of maybe a couple of stinkers in between?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've got a lot of experience. The manager's very experienced, and you always know the Germans. You know, you can never rule them out. But yeah, it's as Stu said, it's blown it wide open. There's a lot of teams that could win it, but there's not really one team that's been maybe Italy. You know, they've been very consistent so far, but you can't really. You know, it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you get out of the group. You know, everyone's going to the round of 16, and I'm a believer of. I think we talked about this the other day, Stu, about people who you face. I don't think it really matters. You know, trying to finish first and second. At some point, you're going to have to play the big teams. You know, there's no point saying let's try and finish second so we avoid this team, or try and finish first. So you've got to get out of the group, keep the consistency going. And you've just got to try and keep the momentum going. And the Germans now against Hungary, they've got to put their best side out, try and score as many goals as they can, try and win as big as they can. But again, I said this before, I think the Germans, they're not free from their criticism. They were poor defensively at times. They were caught a lot of times on the break. The three centre halves, in my opinion, you can get at them a lot. They're quite slow. And I think that you could cause them problems. And I think Hungary probably will cause them problems in the last game. Hungary probably will cause them problems. But as I said, obviously they won 4-2 yesterday. But yeah, the Germans, you can never rule them out. And I've got a funny feeling that they're going to come up against England in the round of 16. I've just got a funny feeling it's going to be England and Germany again.
Great.
Unfortunately. And I think England will probably go out with the record that they've got. But yeah, Germany, I was a bit critical of them on Twitter yesterday when they went 1-0 down. I said they're too, and they came and they proved me wrong. They won, but yeah, no team is free from criticism, and this German side is not special. It's not spectacular, but as you said before, Ben, you can't rule them out. They always get the job done. And they have got some world-class players, as Stu said. Tony Kroos in midfield can dictate the game, but as I said, those three centre-backs, I'll tell you now, they are not at it though. Rudiger, Hummels and Ginter, you can get at those if you want to. And if England do come up against them, I would expect, no matter how bad England have been so far, players like Rashford, even Sterling, I know he's had a shocker, but his runs in behind, they will cause Germany problems.
Yeah, I think you're right, Charlie. I mean, one of the things that Germany and Italy have is know-how. They've got a few wily old players, and Muller is a wily old fox. Neuer, been there, seen it, done it. Hummels, you're quite right, is too slow, but his positional play is up there with the very, very best. Italy run the same with Chiellini and Bonucci. I know Chiellini is potentially injured at the minute, hasn't he? I know he came off the other day. But they've got experience. They're wily. They know how. What worries me about England is that we haven't got any of that know-how. We haven't got any real tournament experience, any real depth. Players that have been there, seen it, done it. When you're in the trenches, you're in the mud, you can cry, can claw your way out of it. We don't necessarily have that. We've got some players that perform very, very well as individuals, but as a collective, we don't have that. And I think yesterday, as you're absolutely right, Charlie, 100% agree with you, Portugal really could have maybe got something out of the game, maybe at times made it 4 apiece. But they, good teams, good solid teams. And Benny, you've heard me speak about this on many occasions, when you got to dig in. And Germany dug in yesterday. And that was a big plus point for Germany. I think Jürgen Löw, when he's analysing the game, would look at the areas that he needs to improve on, as you've pointed out, Charlie, but he'll also look at the collective and think, spirit, collective determination, intelligence, we've got it. And they do have that, Germany. And Italy have that as well. And that's my biggest worry about England. You know, I was reading a statement yesterday. Harry Kane had come out and said, I might not have had the best couple of games, but I do it in the business end of the season. Well done, pal. You've got to get there first. You can't start chirping until you get there. And we are quite precarious in our group. Just like, as you quite rightly say, Charlie, Germany, Portugal and France. We all thought they would progress, all three of them, in the order that potentially would be France, Portugal, Germany. But now I'm not so sure. No, I think I think you're absolutely absolutely right. I think it's this tournament. When you look at Euros in the past, you can normally pick your last 16. I think this tournament's going to throw up a couple of surprises. And I know you're probably going to want to touch on today's performance. Today's games. There's only 2 games, isn't there?
Yeah.
Today you're going to see the most strategic draw of Euro 21 so far, because you can't tell me that Italy and Wales won't play out a draw, because they both go through. Then it doesn't affect their standing. Italy win the group and Wales come second. So it's now going to start to get to the strategy point as well for some teams, and you're going to have some absolute full-on, 12-round belters knocking shit out of each other to qualify. It's going to be really interesting. Period. Sorry, Benny, if he was going to talk about that, I've kind of. No. We're
going to get to Wales a little bit later on, because there's something I want to come on to. But I just wanted to finally finish off the Portugal-Germany game, speaking about Ronaldo's goal. Because for me, that's probably one of the goals of the tournament. I know it's not as spectacular as as some other strikes have been this tournament so far, but the fact that for a 36-year-old, we all know he's superhuman. He's a machine, to break. All the way from his edge of his own box to go out, get on the end of that and score. That's just what he's all about, isn't it, Stu?
Oh, it's a tremendous goal. I thought, when any young footballer wants to look at work rate, wants to look at how you get to the top, and wants to look at how you stay at the top, and wants to look at how you eke year on year on year on year out on your career, you have to look at, Ronaldo. The guy is a machine. But, the guy trains constantly. He's constantly training. He's constantly looking to improve his game. He's constantly looking at methods how he can improve his physique, his stature, his energy levels, his power output. He's not as quick as he was, people say, but the speed that he covered the ground yesterday was brilliant. Actually, the ball across, I can't remember who put the ball across. I think it might have been Jota, but correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But the ball across was actually aimed at Ronaldo. Ronaldo, I think, was just slightly offside looking back at it. And anyway, it fell to Bernardo Silva. But Bernardo Silva's touch to remove Neuer out the equation, which is what he did, to give Ronaldo a tap-in was football at its very, very best. It's what you like about football. It's what as a 5-year-old in your back garden when you're kicking a ball around, or you're going to the park with your mates. That's what you kind of dream of. You dream of a scenario where you can, take players out the equation, and that's what happened yesterday. So I thought it was a wonderful goal, Benny. Wonderful goal.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. What did you think of the goal, Charlie?
Yeah, I agree with Stu. It was class. That Portugal front four of Jota, Bruno, Bernardo Silva and Ronaldo is very, very good. But I think the two Portugal fullbacks got shown out yesterday. I mean, Semedo, I've always said for Wolves, Semedo is okay going forward, but he can't defend. And the amount of times, for the Germany, Gerson's header, I think, was it the 4th goal, Gerson's header, I think it might have been. He was at the back post, free header. And Guerrero, they had 2 own goals as well. And I think, that Portugal, the midfield too as well, they're supposed to be players that defend well. Portugal, the goal was fantastic. It really was. Ronaldo, fantastic. Bernardo Silva. They've got so much quality at the front end of the pitch, but the 2 fullbacks in particular yesterday, they were just so poor defensively, and it really let them down. I'm a bit surprised because I thought Portugal would be quite a strong defensive unit with, Diaz and Pepe. I thought that looked quite good, and I thought that Carvalho and Danilo, the two defensive midfielders, I thought, okay, they're not going to give too much away here, but the two fullbacks, Semedo, they're so poor defensively. So I think that's what called them out yesterday. And the Germans deserve to win 100%, but the goal was fantastic. But unfortunately,
Charlie, who squared the ball over? I thought it was Silva that knocked the ball across.
It was Jota. I think it was Jota.
They put the ball into Ronaldo.
Yeah, I think Bernardo Silva was the one who countered, who brought the ball out and then played it over to Jota. I thought it
was Bernardo Silva's right little foot. I thought it was Bernardo Silva that dinked it into Ronaldo. Could be wrong.
Connor's saying it's Jota as well.
Yeah, I think it was Jota, yeah.
Could be wrong.
Connor's also saying, Stu, you look very smart today.
Yeah, well, I'm going for Father's Day dinner, aren't I? Straight after. So, thank you, Connor.
Yeah, we won't keep it too much longer anyway, Stu, because I know that.
Well, that's all right.
Now we've talked about it. I just want to round off with yesterday's games with the Spain-Poland one. Another 1-1 draw there. That man Lewandowski scoring as well. I like a bit of Lewandowski, me. But the main headline out of that is David De Gea yet again not starting for Spain. Do you think it's a contribution to his form, or is it that he's been in and out the last few weeks of the Premier League season with Man United due to the birth of his child? What's the underlying issue there, Charlie? Is it something that we as Manchester United fans should be worried about if he's not being selected for Spain? Is his head still not right? What's your take on it, pal?
Well, yeah, De Gea, he hasn't played for 10 games in a row now where De Gea hasn't started. The last time he started was in October for Spain. He's been in and out for Man United. Obviously, Ollie obviously gave Henderson a chance when De Gea had to go off to look after, obviously, with the birth of his child in Spain. But I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think De Gea will probably leave Man United this summer. There's talk about who's going to pay his wages. He is on high wages, but I just don't think he's going to play for Man United. I think I just think Henderson's the man in favour for Ollie, and it seems with Spain as well, they've chosen that Simon, who plays for Athletic Bilbao, ahead of him. And I think there's doubts over De Gea. There always has been, and I do understand it. There's doubts over De Gea in terms of dominance in the box. He is not a dominant goalkeeper. He isn't strong enough. He seems a little bit, it might sound silly, but sometimes he looks a little bit scared of the ball. When the ball's coming at him or there's a boot going in there, he doesn't put his, he doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve. He doesn't get in there and stop. He doesn't put his, he doesn't really put himself on the line and do his all to stop the ball going in the back of the net. And at times, for me, he doesn't command his box enough. However, he's still a good goalkeeper. I know that might sound silly. I still think he's a good goalkeeper. He's a good shot stopper. And he is still a decent goalkeeper. But I think, he's not starting for Man United in the league anyway. He hasn't started for Spain for 10 games. I think it spells the end for him, in all fairness. I just don't think he seems to go out of favour. And yeah, it's a strange one. But on Spain as well, I think we'll probably touch on their performance in a minute, but I'll see what Stu says about De Gea.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll come on to the Spain one, which is the second leg performance. Stu, your take on De Gea, mate?
Yeah, well, I've said a few times, I've known on the show that De Gea is not commanding enough for me. He's an excellent shot stopper. But at the very beginning of the season, the fans were giving our centre-halves a lot of grief, Maguire and Lindelof in particular, about being weak at the back. But the problem is, as a good centre-half, you need a great communicating goalkeeper behind you. You need a goalkeeper that you can trust, a goalkeeper that's going to come for crosses, and if he's got a right hook you out the way to get it, he will do. But unfortunately, De Gea has never been that type of goalkeeper. Ever since he's been in the UK and in the Premier League, he's never had that strength, that awe, and that ability to come and claim, really command his box. Manchester United have had a history of great goalkeepers doing that. Van der Sar, Schmeichel, all really good, solid goalkeepers. Gary Bailey was great at that. Alex Stepney was good at it. We've had a raft of top goalkeepers. But unfortunately for me, De Gea has never quite had that fear. He doesn't put fear into the attacker. I always think with De Gea, when you're attacking, you're bearing down on him. You never see the whites of De Gea's eyes, or De Gea will never see the whites of the attacker's eyes because he's just frightened, really. I also said as soon as his child was born, you would probably see De Gea move on. And I do think that's a big thing. You know, he's a first-time father. He's not getting to spend any time with his baby. That must be heart-wrenching, really. So I would think he will move on in the summer, or I would have thought he would have moved on in the summer. It might depend now on what happens with Henderson's hip injury and the seriousness of Henderson's hip injury, because it's quite bad. That is, I'm just hoping it's bruised rather than a hairline fracture or something along those lines. Because if it is, it's going to be a very, very painful process for Henderson to recover. Because if a goalkeeper can't dive, he's a waste of space. So from that point of view, it might change Ollie's thinking. In terms of Spain overall, I'm not impressed. I did the first episode of the Euros with Ben. Ben says, "What do you think of Spain?" Oh, like crikey, I went blank. I didn't really know who they got. I was trying to think. If the Spain teams in the past, you could reel off a raft of quality footballers, but I don't think they've got no one from Real Madrid. I think they've only got one or two from Barca in the side. They're still playing Morata up front. I know he got his goal yesterday. It was a good goal. That was a bit of a poacher's goal. But Spain, I've always thought was nondescript. I had absolutely no idea. Was Laporte? What has he got? A Spanish granddad or something? So I thought he was a different nationality, Laporte. But anyway,
it's one of them. I don't know.
What do I know
either? Charlie, what did you make of Spain yesterday? Did they again flatter to deceive?
Yeah, Spain against Sweden in the first game. They created so many chances and just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. Last night, they created a lot of chances again. They missed a penalty. And then, funnily enough, the rebound came to Morata and he skewed it wide. It was a calamity of errors, really, from the forwards, although they did combine well for the first goal. But yeah, Spain really just planned, passing the ball around with no real intent, no real. They don't look like they want. They don't look like they smell blood. They don't look like they want to kill. They just look like they're having a nice time in the park, passing it around to each other. Jordi Alba on the left hand side. He's a very good player. They've got Rodri. They've got a few good players, but they just can't score enough goals. And I said now I predict them to draw the last game as well. I think they'll draw with Slovakia. I can't see them beating Slovakia. No. And that says it all really about Spain. But yeah, one point I do want to touch on was Danny Murphy, because he was on commentary for the Spain game. Yeah. And he said, it was very fun. I did laugh to myself. He said, England shouldn't worry too much about this Spain team. That was his comment. And I thought to myself, after the performance that England put in against Scotland, I don't think anybody, not one team in this tournament, will be much worried about the England team either. So I just thought that was quite ironic. There's the amount of bias that is in the English media on the TV. Ian Wright thinking they'll hammer Scotland. The amount of bias is unreal. England are an average team with an average manager at best. If they did come up against Spain, it would probably be a 0-0 drab affair that would go to penalties anyway. So, that was very ironic from Danny Murphy. But yeah, as Stu said, Spain, nothing to worry about. They don't score enough goals. I feel a bit for Morata, to be honest. I feel a bit sorry for him because it just keeps happening to him. He keeps missing. I know he did get a goal, but it was unbelievable. But yeah, Spain, I think they could go out the group.
They're back to Spain are back to a little bit like England in many ways, because they haven't got that leader again. There's no Sergio Ramos there. They've got no shithouser in their team whatsoever. They've got nobody. Rodri, fucking poser. You know, they've got to, this is the problem with Spain. They've got too many posers in their side. And at that level, you can't be a poser. You can't be strutting around like a so-called fucking peacock. You know, you've got to get in. You've got to get in where it hurts. If you're struggling to break teams down, you've got to affect the game. And a good central midfielder, that's what he's there for. He's got to affect the game. You know, he puts in a challenge. He drops a sly whatever somewhere. Just you've got to disrupt your opposition. Spain haven't got that about them. They haven't got that aggressiveness. They haven't got that angriness. They're not, you know, they're just fucking. Jordi Alba's right. You're absolutely right. He's a wonderful player. He's a fucking poser, though. He just loves to go, you know, stroll around on the left wing.
Sorry, Stu. I was going to say, my main fear about Spain is I think the lack of firepower. I think they're really struggling up top.
But he's not playing Busquets. Busquets has made an absolute career at Barcelona, just breaking up the play and giving it to Messi or giving it to Iniesta or whoever, you know, any of the flair players. You know, you needed Busquets in there yesterday. Somebody who could stick his foot in. Look, Fernandinho, he is a player that everybody hates, isn't he? You know, everybody hates Fernandinho, but he's there doing the nasty things. He'll take a booking when it's needed. He knows how to manage the game and how to affect the game and how to disrupt the game. And unfortunately, Spain have got nothing like that. And actually, neither do we. Neither do we. We haven't got that. We haven't got that shithousery that you need to win. You watch Germany over the next couple of games as they start to slowly wind it up. That, you know, Pepe years ago, at times during the game, because he's not quick enough anymore, Charlie, but Pepe years ago would have found a way to nullify Muller, would have found a way to nullify Kroos, would have found a way to nullify Germany's threat by pure and unadulterated shithousery. He'd have done something. He'd have walked past you. He'd have kneed you in the back, the small of the back, and put you down. He'd have elbowed you. He'd have dragged you down. You know, things of that nature. They don't do it anymore. Football's gone fucking soft. I mean, what is it with football now? And the reason is because players, every time you're going to hear a player, he's fucking hell, he's rolling around. Fucking get on with it. You know, and that's unfortunately where it is. And unfortunately, Spain fall into that category, Charlie. Nondescript.
Yeah.
I went off on another tangent there. I don't know what's up with me today.
Oh, yeah. You're always full of tangents, so that's why we love you, pal.
Fucking hell. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. Anyway, because I know you've got a meal to get to, mate, I'll quickly move it on to the games today. Well, I'm going to, just the one game I'm going to concentrate on because I don't think anyone really cares about the other one, but Wales, because they are a home nation, Dan James, because he's a Man United player, and they only need a draw against Italy to basically qualify in second. However, I know that the captain, Gareth Bale, has said that they've got a game plan. They're working to a game plan, which they think they could well go out on and beat Italy, and they're going to go out to win the game. Is that the right idea, Charlie? Should Wales go out to win the game, or should they just be content to maybe draw it? Because, as we all know, they only need a point. I think Stu mentioned it earlier. They only need a point. It's set up really nicely for probably a boring 0-0 of this one. But for me, because I'm a bit of a football purist, I want to see teams go out there, and I want to see teams go out for a win. I know it's still a bit on the line there for Wales, but surely you go into that match looking to go out and beat the Italians.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting game, I think, with the team selections, because obviously Italy, you know, pretty much I can't see Wales beating Italy. But I think there will be a few players that won't play. You know, whether I don't think they'll drop Bale and Ramsey, but I think there might be a few changes. You know, you've got players like Joe Allen in there who are aging a little bit. Will he change it up? Will he give a fresh look to Wales? Just, you know, I'm always a talker of keeping momentum. So I wouldn't make too many changes. I think you've got to keep the momentum going for Wales. It's working as it is. They're playing well. But I think it will be a very tight game. I think it'll be Italy's toughest game so far, I think. I think Wales are quite a good outfit. I think they're a little bit suspect at the back, but they've got players who can affect the game. Dan James on the left-hand side plays a lot better than he does on the right for United. He's a lot better on the left, in my opinion. they've got Bale, they've got a Ramsey, they've got the Kiefer Moore up front who can will cause problems. He'll make a threat. They're good on set pieces. They will cause Italy some problems, but I think Italy might just nick it. But I think, as I said before, it's going to depend on the team lineups. Will they make any changes? Will they freshen things up for the third game? Will Italy rest any players? I think it might come down to that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, mate. That's a very, very good point. Stu, I left this comment on air for you, mate. Much as it Wales side outgrowing Italy are 30 unbeaten matches with their record. With 11 games on the bounce, going 11 games without conceding a goal. Is it a massive uphill task for Wales today?
Well, Italy might view it two ways. They might view it as to say we possibly could be the only team or one of the only teams to get 9 points when win the 3 group games. Or they could rest a couple of their players for the last 16 and just be happy with a draw. It's a real difficult one, this, because if both managers were to look at the group, the conventional wisdom would say, let's just take it easy. Let's have a bit of a stroll in the park, use a bit of energy conservation, and draw the game. We're both through. Don't worry about it. And if I was in both camps, that's probably how I would approach this. Certainly the Welsh camp. Wales did the right thing for me against Turkey. They did their very best to win that game of football. Didn't drag it out for 90 minutes, and Bale was phenomenal. But I just think that if Wales go and attack Italy today and go for the win, they could end up coming unstuck. And I fully expect Switzerland to beat Turkey. And I fully expect, if Switzerland beat Turkey, I think Switzerland, they'll move on to 4. So they'll probably go through as one of the third place finishes, because I think they've got a worse goal difference than Wales. But Wales don't want to go into the last 16 on the end of a hammering. So draw. I'm sorry, I can't see anything more than a drab 0-0 stroke 1-1 draw. I don't expect a win today. I think if they do, then both, certainly Wales, but I think if they do, then both teams will be shooting themselves in the foot. It just depends what both teams' ambitions are. It depends whether Italy are looking for the clean sweep of 9. It makes absolutely no difference whether you finish on 7 points or 9 points. It's an irrelevance. And so I expect a draw. Yeah, I'll be amazed if it isn't. I really would be. Sorry, guys, and everyone who's listening and watching, but I would be amazed. And I think you see, if Turkey beat Switzerland, they can finish on 3 points, can't they? With an outside chance of making it through. Mm. So I don't know.
It's all to play for, mate.
I think so. Our group's the most interesting next. I think our group's really interesting.
Well, yeah, exactly. But just to finish us off today, I'm going to ask about Dan James, because for me, I thought he's done all right for the previous 2 games that he's played for Wales in this competition. Without the pressures of play for Manchester United, he looks a completely different player to me. What have you made of his performances so far this tournament, Charlie?
Yeah, Dan James. I said this before. He's a lot better on the left-hand side. When he goes on to the right, I don't think he plays as well. Dan James is not an incredibly talented footballer. I don't think anyone thinks that. What Dan James is he works hard for the team. His work rate's very good. His pressing ability on the opposition is very good when he hasn't got the ball. He keeps team shape well. He's good on the counter-attack. And I don't think Dan James will perhaps be ever good enough to start for Man United in a title-winning team. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I think Dan James is an impact player to bring on. If you're winning 1-0, if you're winning 2-1, if you need somebody to, do a job, to mark a certain player, to press a certain player, to stop somebody playing, he could certainly do that. But he's been very good so far. His end product is not always the best. As I said, he's not incredibly talented, but he's played well. I like the way that Wales set up with James, Ramsey, Bale and Moore as the front four. I think that's an interesting front four. I think it'll cause Italy problems if they all start today. He always turns up for Wales. You know, he normally turns up for Wales. He's a good player. He's nothing incredibly special. He works hard. I think that he will make an impact today. Italy, as I said before, it's not all about pace. As I said with the German defence, I think somebody made a comment about Germany. Germany's defence is probably better than England's defence. I didn't say they weren't. I'm just saying Germany's defence is slow, and if you get at them, you can cause them problems. And Italy's defence, the two centre halves are quite slow. And if Dan James gets isolated against one of them, he will cause them problems. So Wales will cause Italy problems on the counter, I think, today. I think Italy have played two teams that have lacked real pace. I think Switzerland play a back five, and they haven't really got, other than Embolo, they haven't got any runners. Turkey were atrocious, had no pace up front to cause them problems. So this will be Italy's toughest game. Dan James, Bale on the counter, I think they'll cause them problems. But I agree with what Stu says about the draw. But I think Italy are going to come out all guns blazing, and I think they'll win 2-1.
Absolutely. Interesting. Yeah. Absolutely. What I said there, by the way. I thought,
your thoughts on Dan James, mate?
No, I thought Charlie's put it eloquently. To be honest, I like Dan James. I think the pressures of playing for Manchester United outweigh playing for the country through expectations, because Manchester United are expected to win. Come on, mate. Wales aren't. And I think a good loan to somebody like Brighton would be good for him, just to see what he can do. I think he's been really good in the two games that he's played. But actually, I think Wales have been quite good as a collective unit anyway. And so that does help. But I think a loan is the best option for him. And Charlie's right, he'll come back as a squad player. But I like his attitude. He's bulked up over the summer last year, or COVID. And if he can have a strong pre-season, he'll become an important player for us if he stays around. But I think for me, I would pop him out on loan and give him 12 months somewhere else. But anything, most players, Donny van der Beek's very, very similar. Most players away from the pressures of day-to-day Manchester United football find it a lot easier playing for their countries. And I think Dan James is just one of those.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I just thought I'd give him a shout because he's had a couple of decent games, and being a United channel, I thought we'd give one of our own a shout out. I'm going to wrap it up there because Stu's got a lovely dinner to go to. He's looking ready.
Thank you for having me, Benny and Charlie. Great to work with you again, old friend.
Great show. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. Charlie, you've been an absolute diamond, mate. Absolute top analysis there from you, pal. I've been really impressed with that. Yeah, I like it from Stu there. Stu, I was just trying to find this comment before I went.
I don't give praise that easy, Charlie.
He doesn't.
I appreciate it.
From Connor, but it was ages ago about wearing a T-shirt on somewhere. Anyway, I petitioned for Stu to wear a T-shirt with he's a poser on it.
Yeah, sorry. It's one of my favourite. Look, what I mean by that, just let me just clarify. The modern day player, they're posers. They don't play what I would call football. You know, they dilly-dally around it. They've got dainty feet. They're trying the Hollywood ball all the time. And football isn't about that. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're playing football in the 50s or you're playing football in 2025. The concept of football is exactly the same. You have 22 players on the pitch, and whoever sticks the ball in the onion bag the most wins the game, period. That's it. And you hear phrases all the time about double pivot, about CDM, about outside right, inside right. It's all bollocks. Look, when you're on that pitch, you do your best to win. And Ben's heard me talk about pockets. I talk about pockets on the football pitch because you see 5 to 8 yards around you. You've got a pocket to your left, a pocket to your right, a pocket to your front, and a pocket to behind. That's your domain. And it's up to you, and it's up to everybody else within their certain areas and parameters of that pitch to block and stop. And this is where I always talk about intelligence. But like Cancelo, Rodri. I could go on. I could literally go on about these posers. They're too lightweight. They've got no real end product on occasions. They love the crowd. They love the whole arena side of it, but they take their eye off their actually basic principles of football, and I can't be doing with it. So, but I'm a Nemanja Vidic player, fan. So Roy Keane fan, Paul Ince fan, Stevie Bruce fan, Schmeichel fan. Yeah, Jaap Stam. This is the type of era that I grew up with. I understand that football has changed and that people change, and that's the way that people look at football changes. But for the love of fucking God, it's the same. It's the same. It's 22 players. So I just hope that, this is probably why I like Ruben Diaz so much, because I know we got exposed woefully yesterday, but he's a bit of a throwback. He's a bit like he'll throw his body in there. He'll throw his head in there. He'll do everything he can to keep the ball out of the net. And there's not enough of that type of player anymore. So probably one of the reasons I wouldn't want Rafael Varane coming, because he kind of puts in that poser. As good as he is, he's just in that poser category for me. But Charlie won't agree with me, because I
totally agree with you. Agree with you.
I said ages ago, right? I said ages ago about the Super League, and everybody's jumped on my bandwagon on this, and Benny will back me up on this. I was on a show with him about the Super League, and I said that these clubs don't care about older fans. I didn't say legacy fans or anything like that. I said older fans, my age group, because they're more interested in the FIFA generation. And I know a lot about the FIFA generation because I've got a lad who plays FIFA. He just plays pro clubs and all of this, and he's going on about who he's packed in his cards and Ronaldo and all of this. So I understand about the FIFA generation, and they don't want us anymore. I am a dinosaur to them, unfortunately, and they want your type of age group, Charlie, to support because you're the future, and I get all of that. But if you go and watch a game from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, whatever, the principle of football hasn't changed. It doesn't change. What's changed is nutrition. What's changed is training. What's changed is equipment. What's changed is pitches. What's changed is cameras. There's a variety of things that have changed. But you look at the likes of Cancelo, Rodri, whatever. You put them on a turnip pitch from the 80s against an absolute rock hard Paul Ince. They're not going to want to know. That's the disappointing thing for me. That's the only reason I call them posers. Just to clear up just to clarify because everybody's heard me say posers a lot, but just to clarify, that's how I feel. And you almost need that throwback player, and there will be a throwback player that will come back into the game, and he'll kind of start to change it. Kante's very, very similar to being a Roy Keane or a Paul Ince star. Doesn't tackle as hard, but he's no nonsense. He wins the ball back and he gets rid of it. He doesn't do anything he's not on that pitch not to do. He just does what he's there for. So anyway, Jesus, I've been at it all day today. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Ending the show though, going off on a tandem about posers, but I think it's very well put though, mate. And it's a very good way to end the show. My thank you to Charlie, who's been absolutely excellent, as I said. A thank you to Stu as always.
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened to Chuki. I'm sure he's probably overslept or something. He does live in America, I believe. I think he's American. Yeah. So I'll try and find out what happened to him, and we'll get him on the show again. Thank you very much
again. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
Yeah, happy Father's Day.
Listening, watching. Have a great rest of the day, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to spend time with my son now, and his version of Father's Day is that I've got to buy him a Lego set. So
absolutely right. Absolutely right. He's got it spot on. Jake had a pair of today off me for Father's Day, by the way. Some new Nike things. I don't know what they're bloody. I am now showing me age, Arno. I don't know what they're called. But anyway, I feel you, Ben. I feel you.
Right, I better end this before the big Ben, the main boss, whinges that I've nearly gone an hour again. So thank you to everybody, and we shall see you in the next one.